Okay, wills, estates, trust. This is going to be a basic overview. I'm hoping that you guys have already looked at the previous videos. That was power of attorney, funeral preparation, and then winding down an estate. So this is going to be a big overview. This is like our big picture view of what's happening. So why you need to have a will and estate plan. First of all, death doesn't give you a heads up. No one gets a 2-week notice from death, and unfortunately when that happens, it's terminal. Before that happens, you should have, you don't want worst case scenario to have happened and you have not planned for that. The other thing is age and youth, you're not invincible. And that is something that the COVID-19 pandemic taught us. People young and old were dying from the pandemic. So to have that happen without a will and to let the state decide who gets your property and your assets, and you have probate costs, legal fees. So to die intestate without a will, it's you are putting a huge financial burden on your loved ones. Okay, so like even if you do have assets, like well I got money, well, if you did not have a will or a trust that allocated that, there could be estate tax, other taxes, and like I said, without a will or a trust, you're gonna have to go to your loved ones are gonna have to go to probate court, and the court's going to be in your business. Okay, and I've said this before in the financial planning series and in all the other videos beforehand. Anytime you have a life-changing event that requires you to make changes to your HR, your enrollment, life, death, birth, adoption, divorce, marriage, retirement, you need to be updating your will and estate planning. For me, when my mother died, my mother was always my power of attorney for healthcare and finances. And when she died, I was like, ooh, we need to update the will and all this other stuff, because now who's going to be that person that's going to make those decisions? And I ended up hired an estates attorney. Yes, I'm a lawyer, but that is not my practice area. And also I was grieving. And the last thing I wanted to be doing was making some big legal things on my own. And because the estates attorney, she's like, you're a lawyer, you can handle some of this and I can knock off the fee. I was like, you know what? I'm grieving. You do this for me. You do it all. And like I said, person did a fabulous job, so that, now everything's in place. I don't have to worry. Don't have to worry. I'm going to give you guys a quote from Black Panther. A parent who has not prepared his children for his own death has failed as a parent. Don't do that to your, please, like I said, go see the video on funeral preparation. Don't do that to your children. Don't. By this time, and like I said, I already did a separate video on power of attorney. You have anybody over 18 needs a power of attorney for health care. It's sometimes called a healthcare proxy or an advance directive. Your power of attorney for your health care should be on file with all of your doctors, and whoever your caregiver should know who that person is. It also lists things like DNR, whether or not you want to donate your organs, that type of thing. Power of attorney for finances, also known as a durable power of attorney. This person does not have to be the same person that's your power of attorney for healthcare. This should be someone that you trust, that is financially responsible, and has good money management skills. This person will assume financial management of your account and assets if you're incapacitated or upon your death. They're going to help you wind down your estate. And there's a video on winding down your estate, and the power of attorney for finances is going to be essential to that part. Wills. Wills are subject to state law. So your will is dictated by the state you reside in. No will means that when you die, then you are considered dying intestate. And the laws of your state regarding succession determines who gets your property in probate court. As you recall, when Prince died in 2016, he did not have a will. It took until 2022 before the probate court settled his estate and who gets what. Or you can have a problem of an outdated will. Like I said, your will should be updated annually, or with life changing events. And here's where I talk about an outdated will. If you remember John Singleton, Boys in the Hood, he had a will, but his will was years old, like when he had his first child. So the will did not include his other children, and I think he had several more children. And that can lead to the original will being contested, and you guys ended up in probate court anyway, which means lawyer fees and costs. So you want to make sure that your will is also up to date. Mental capacity, and this is where having a power of attorney for healthcare and all that other stuff comes in case of Alzheimer's or dementia. And I mentioned this in the video about the sandwich generation, and also in the power of attorney video. You guys remember B. Smith restaurants? Oh, they were so delicious. B. Smith was, she's like Martha Stewart, and she ended up having early Alzheimer's. You want to make sure that that situation is handled. Again, run to the whole power of attorney thing. Again, you want to have your wills and stuff in place, because, no one thinks they're going to die early. COVID taught us it could happen. So particularly, you don't want to be in a thing where you are incapacitated and you haven't made these decisions, because then there comes the fight among the family of who's going to be your person, because they might want to control your funds. Do this ahead of time. All right. So I'm moving on through this. Another reason why you need to have estate planning, a will or a trust in place. If you've been married multiple times, divorced, separated, have a prenup agreement. I have an article where I talked to a divorce attorney, and particularly women, if you are a professional woman, you own your own business and all this other stuff, you need a prenup. Prenups are not just for the men. Like, women are now, half of the people in college are women. If you started a business, all this other stuff before you met your spouse, you need a prenup. Go to Rondaisms.com and see that article. Legal separation. I mentioned this previously in Power of Attorney video. I've met friends and people who I thought was divorced. I thought they were divorced. They were like, no, I'm legally separated. I'm like, so you've updated your power of attorney, right? Because most states, it is presumed that if you are married, that the person that makes decisions for you in case you're incapacitated or something like that is your spouse. So if you haven't, if you're just separated, you might want to look at those power of attorney issues with your state's attorney and your divorce lawyer, okay? Gary Coleman, you guys remember Gary Coleman, Different Strokes? While he was in the hospital, he had divorced, and then allegedly the ex-wife tried to come in and make decisions on his behalf. Look it up. We've, you guys, Frankie Lyman, Fool in Love. You've seen the movie, what happens with multiple marriages. Y'all all know what Mary J. Blige had to go through with her marriage divorce situation. If you have children from multiple marriages, you've heard about Cinderella, where, the whole problem with Cinderella, where was the will to protect Cinderella's assets even after he remarried? Here's an example of Natalie Cole's son. Natalie Cole had one son. He was the recipient of a property, and you might look up the story. He died young, in his 30s, I believe. He had no will. He had no children. He was never married. Because he had no will, no children, was never married, his father had children from a previous marriage. They ended up getting his assets from his mother's estate. If you have pensions, stocks, debts, these are all things where you need to have a will and estate planning in place. I'm trying to run through these because I'm trying to keep these videos under 20. Guardianships. You got children. You have adult children that have special needs. In addition to your will, you need to have something that, like if you have young children or you have adult children with special needs, you need a guardianship of minors or adult dependents. One of the things I always talk about is you guys saw the movie Tom Cruise, Rain Man, where he's upset, the father dies, he's upset the dad only leaves him a very expensive vintage car. He was like, there's more money, so he decides to take physical custody of his special needs brother, Rain Man. What he didn't know, the father did estate planning. He set up a trust. He had a trustee so that no matter who had physical custody of Raymond, the financial stuff was always handled by the trustee. Another movie I always tell people about is this whole thing, Raising Helen. Raising Helen, I think Kate Hudson was in the movie. And in the movie, there's 3 siblings. The oldest, she's married, she has kids. Her and the husband die in a car accident, simultaneous death. And I talk about this in Power of Attorney. Even though the husband had a great job and all this other stuff, they didn't have enough funds that would allow the family to keep the home, all this other stuff. Please look after your children. Mel B from Spice Girls. Click on that, in the custody battle for her child. Anna Nicole Smith, when she had a huge estate that she inherited from her wealthy husband, and when she died, all of the people that came forth claiming to be the father of her child. There's a separate article that I have on Rondaisms. Should you make your child your minor child, the beneficiary of your life insurance and stuff like that? Please run over there. I go into extreme detail of the pros and the cons of why you probably don't want to do that. Why you should probably have a trust for your children. And like I said, if you have special needs children, you need to do some estate planning. You need to be talking to an estate's attorney about how to set up a trust or whatever to look after them. And this is like, I already did the video on the 3 experts you need to be talking to when you're doing your financial planning and your estate planning: a financial advisor, an accountant, and an estate's attorney, because you don't want to have to deal with estate tax and stuff like that. That's why your accountant is necessary. But particularly if you have children, and I've had people come to me and say, hey, do you mind being guardian of my child? And I was like, that's nice, but we live in different states. Understand, I'm not going to move to your state. I would move your child here. And one of the bigger reasons for them asking was like, they were more concerned about the family members. If they gave guardianship to a family member, what the family member would do to the funds that were set aside for the minor children. And again, like I said, the person is power of attorney for your health care, or the guardian of your children does not need to have power of attorney for finances. Go read that, power of attorney article. And this is where having a good estate's attorney is going to help you. They're going to walk you through this process. All right. So we talked about multiple marriages, guardianship of minors and adult dependents, personal property and assets. If you have a home, for most Americans, the home is their biggest asset. If there is no will, that means your home can end up in probate to determine ownership. Okay? There's something called a transfer on death instrument. That is not available in all states. In some states it's available, whereby if you've already paid off the mortgage, you can do a transfer on death instrument that says, and you file it with the county, that says that on your death, these people inherit your home. Like I said, that's not available in all states. This is where you need to talk to an estate's attorney. If you have a family business, if there's a family business, was there a succession plan put in place? What does it say? Is there business life insurance? If you have car, furniture, antiques, artwork, and jewelry, like I said, I gave this example in this whole thing about the winding down the estate, where someone told me their loved one was dying, while the loved one was in the hospital being declared dead. Other family members were at that person's home, hauling off furniture and possessions. Have a will and an estate plan for this? Do you have digital assets, intellectual property, websites, music, books? I'm a writer. I have some unpublished works. When I had my estate's attorney do my will, my trust, there's a provision in there about what if my unpublished works get published after my death? What happens to those royalties, those assets? Your creatives, talking to my creatives, my artists, do you have artwork that hasn't been public? Do you have photographers? You need to be talking about your intellectual property that has not, this happened with Prince. He had his treasure trove, a chest full of, stuff that hadn't gone out. Who owns those rights? What happens to them? Who gets the royalties? And this is, again, where you want to be talking to a financial advisor. You want to be talking to an accountant. You want to be talking to an estates lawyer. Alrighty. Life insurance. I did a whole separate video on life insurance. Here's the thing about life insurance. Life insurance avoids probate court, and typically the proceeds are tax-free. Go to the life insurance video, and also there's an article on Rondaisms about life insurance. Is that tax-free? You need to understand what type of policy the person had. Was it term life? Was it perm life? Please go check out the life insurance video. Also, did their life insurance policy have a 2-year waiting period or a contestability period? Here's the thing. For people who get no medical life insurance, the ones that you've seen on the radio or on TV, you don't need to take a medical exam to get this life insurance. Typically, the no medical life insurance has a 2-year waiting period. So if you die within that 2-year period, it does not pay out. And I mentioned this before when I talked about power of attorney, why you need to let people know and have this discussion of what type of policy they had. Someone reached out to me, their family member was on life support, and they were like, the hospital wants us to consider unplugging them. And I was like, before you do anything, is there a will? Is there any life insurance? Look that over before you made the decision. They thought I was being crass. Ends up, they pull a plug, they call the life insurance company, and this person had a 2-year waiting period. They died within a couple of days of the waiting period expiring. So they ended up getting no money. Had this done. I've done an article where I spoke to Jill Scott and Kelly Rowland about the importance of having life insurance. Run over to Rondaisms, it's there. Funeral costs. And in the video that I did about funeral preparation and what to expect, the average funeral costs anywhere between $8,000 and $15,000. I have several articles about life insurance and the wealth gap in the Black community, in the Hispanic community. So please, run over there. Again, you guys want to run over there to figure out what's the difference between permanent life insurance, and it's not just whole life, and there's term. You need to know there's several products. What are you getting? The other thing, trust. A will is very good. A trust is, having a trust helps to avoid probate court. And trusts aren't just for high net worth individuals. People are like, I'm not a trust fund baby. You don't have to be super uber wealthy to have a trust. A trust can be a bit expensive to do. It can cost anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 to have an estate's lawyer to prepare it, depending on how detailed the trust is. But your trust can help protect your estate from irresponsible heirs wasting generational wealth. I mentioned the whole Rain Man situation. You can put in restrictions like the person has to be over 25, or you can put over 30 before they can receive proceeds from the trust. I remember I had met this one attorney. I was doing some contracting legal consulting, and he was super chill. He was basically a pothead, and I'm like, why are you acting like you ain't got a care in the world? I'm like, if the rest of us stressing over law school and debt and stuff. He's like, oh, there's a trust account, but my trust says I can only get money from my trust if I work at least 30 hours a week. Hey. So you can use a will to establish a trust, but your will cannot override a trust. Again, talk to your estate's attorney, because depending on what you want to do, you can be as detailed as you want in that trust. When you name a trust, when you have a trust, you can make the beneficiary of your life insurance policy, of your annuity, of your 401k, your retirement plan, You can make your trust the beneficiary. That way, the trustee, everything is handled by the trustee. If you have bank accounts, you're payable on death, you can make that your trust account. Your transfer on death, and for your bank and investment accounts. Again, you want to talk to your financial advisor, your estate's attorney, and your accountant about how to best go through this. Things are going to depend on what your financial situation is, what your budget is, and what you're trying to accomplish, particularly if you have minor children or special needs adult dependents. All right. I talked about you need a financial advisor to talk about your short-term and your long-term financial goals, your estate's attorney to help you do your will, your trust, and your power of attorneys, and you need to talk to an accountant about any taxes. How can you lessen your liability? What stuff that was tax deferred that may have a tax consequence after your death. So these are all of the reasons why you want to have a will in place. I know this is but this is an overview, and I want you guys to take this and then go ahead and look at the other videos that are about life insurance, about power of attorney, and I've also the 3 experts you need. So I'm hoping this gets you started so you can start the path, start the journey. All right, guys.